Welcome back to another console collector video. Hey everybody, console collector here. Today's video, we're going to take a look at the rare and uncommon games in the North American Gamecube set. This is basically a follow-up video to a video I did a few years back. The original video, I covered all the rare and expensive and uncommon games in the North American Gamecube set. Well, that video actually helped out a ton of collectors. It was the first of its kind on YouTube, and I've had a lot of people basically say I really helped them collect the set on the cheap, and I basically predicted what games would be expensive in the future. So now it's 2021, it's been a few years since that last video. GameCube prices are absolutely insane, so a lot of the games that I mentioned in the previous video back then have really shot up in price, but nonetheless they're still pretty rare. So, let's dive in and take a look at what games are still rare and uncommon in the North American Gamecube set. Alright, before we get started, just a couple little disclaimers. We're only going to take a look at individual games in the Gamecube set. So that means no variants, such as the Herbs Black Eyed Peas variant, the alternate cover for Star Wars Bounty Hunter, the Blue Jersey NHL 04, even the Zelda Wind Waker Master Quest set. And yes, we're also not going to include the Metroid Prime Wind Waker or the Coliseum bonus disc. Again, this is just individual games that are rare and uncommon. No variants, no big boxes, nothing special like that. Alright, one last thing to keep in mind before we get started. I've actually collected the North American Gamecube set twice. Yes, that's right, twice. So this video is based on my personal experience collecting the set twice, my opinion, some research I've done, and just my overall experience collecting for the GameCube for the past decade. Everyone's experience will vary, of course, so take this video as more a helpful aid than gospel. Alright, let's dive in. We're going to take a look at these in alphabetical order, starting with 007, Agent Under Fire, and ending with Zoo Cube. Alright, let's go. Alright, so we're just going to go one by one here and basically just take a look at the rare and uncommon GameCube games. First one I'm going to mention here is Alien Hominid. This game has gotten fairly expensive. It's a ton of fun, but it's one that you're going to have some problems finding. Animaniacs, The Great Egger Hunt. This game is incredibly difficult to find. I'm not sure why, but it's definitely one that I had problems finding both times collecting the set. And unfortunately, it's going up in price as well. Then we got Auto Modelista here. This game too has shot up in price, which is really strange because it's fairly cheap on the PS2, but of course on the GameCube, it's really tough to find and it's getting expensive. Backyard Sports Baseball 2007. Yeah, sports game. Now don't get that confused for backyard baseball. There's a difference. This game used to be so cheap for many years, but now everyone knows about it and it's expensive. But this is one of the toughest games to find on the Nintendo GameCube. Backyard Sports Baseball 2007. I'll mention Baldur's Gate. It's probably fairly uncommon, but it is getting a little expensive. Both Bait and Kaitos games, you're going to pay quite a bit to get these now. They're pretty uncommon. Batman Dark Tomorrow. This game I had some trouble finding both times collecting the set. I would have to say these are all good. Billy Hatcher. This one used to be pretty tough to find, but a certain Metal Jesus mentioned it in a video a few years back. So that put it in the limelight, and now it's fairly expensive and well known. Here I'll mention Black and Bruised. This game's actually still semi-cheap, and it's just one you don't see too often. BMX XXX. The first time collecting the set, no problem getting it. Second time, I had some trouble. Bomberman Generations and Jetters. Those are fairly uncommon games. Most people don't even know that there's Bomberman games on the GameCube, so keep your eyes out for these ones. Buffy the Vampire Slayer. This one, fairly uncommon. It's still relatively unknown, which is nice. Carmen Sandiego and the Secret of the Stolen Drums. This one's fairly rare and still really cheap. This one I had trouble tracking down. Capcom versus SNK2 EO. This is another one that's fairly uncommon, but it is climbing in price. Casper. This one I had trouble finding. Casper Spirit Dimensions. Keep your eyes out for that one. Pretty tough to find. Chaos Field. This one used to be really rare. Now it's kind of more mainstream and people know about it, and it's gotten fairly expensive. So, not as hard to find as it used to, but you'll be paying to get a copy. Chibi Robo. Gotta give a shout out to Chibi. This one's really expensive now. Unfortunately, it's a great game, but it is a tougher one to find. This one, a lot of people blame me personally for jacking up the price of this one. City Racer. This is an extremely tough game to find. I had a heck of a time finding it the second time. First time, not so bad, but second time, yep, nope, that was a tough one. So, watch for City Racer. I'd honestly say that's probably in like the top 20 rarest GameCube games. Something I like to mention is I actually had a lot of trouble finding a black label version of Crash Bandicoot and the Wrath of Cortex. I see Player's Choice everywhere, but black label, pretty tough to find. Obviously Cubivore, everyone knows about this one. It's Atlas, it's rare, it's expensive. Cubics, Robots for Everyone. This one, the first time collecting the set, I could not find. Second time, I actually had no trouble. It's one of the lowest printed games on the GameCube. Fortunately, it's still pretty cheap, so keep your eyes open for Cubics. I'm going to say Dark Summit. This is just one that nobody really talks about and you don't see too often. It's still really cheap, so now's the time to grab that one. Same with the car too. This one, it's not something that everyone talks about, and I've only seen it a handful of times in the last decade, so it's still a really cheap game to get to. Dave Mirra. Surprisingly, this game is still cheap, but it's just one you don't see too often. Gotta mention Darkened Sky. First time collecting the set, no problem. Second time, big problem. It's still a fairly cheap game, however, there's just not a lot of copies out there. I actually had to buy a sealed copy for my second set. Defender, kind of a cheap filler game, but it's just one you don't see too often. Def Jam Fight for New York. This game is very expensive now. It is a tougher one to find. Digimon Rumble Arena 2. It's kind of a Smash Bros. Clone, but it's gotten really high in price lately. I'm not sure why, but yeah, it's more expensive than rare. Digimon World 4, kind of the same deal. It's going up in price. You can pretty much find one anywhere, but it is getting very expensive. Dinotopia. This was one of the last games I got the second time collecting the set. I had a lot of trouble finding a copy of Dinotopia. Still a cheap game. Definitely keep your eyes on Dinotopia and pick it up if you see it. This game was so cheap the first time collecting the set, and for some reason it's like a $50, $60 game now. So I was surprised, and I learned that this game is getting expensive and it's actually pretty tough to find. I hate paying like bigger money for silly games like that. This stuff's all pretty easy to get. Disney's PK Out of the Shadows. This one I had a lot of trouble finding the first time collecting this set. Second time wasn't so bad, but it's still a fairly uncommon title. The 4 Disney sports games. I don't understand these games, the pricing, but of course Disney Sports Basketball, extremely expensive. It's not even that rare. Like, I've seen a lot of these copies. I think I've had 4 or 5 copies of this game now in the last decade, which doesn't sound like a lot, but I've had more Disney Sports Basketballs than I've had Groove Rider Slot Car Thunder. Anyway, the funny thing about this is it never seems to have the manual. I don't know why, but it never has the manual. So yeah, Disney Sports Basketball, it is a rare game. It's not the rarest, and it's very expensive. You're going to be paying large to get this one. I still kind of laugh and remember when I used to pick these up for 20, 30 bucks. Yeah, and now it's over 400. So yeah, sports football too, gotten really expensive, tough one to find, at least for a decent price. Like this game, I remember the first time collecting this set, I got it for 10 bucks, and it's definitely shot up. I think it's more just because the other sports games have gone up. And Disney Sports Soccer again, another one that's getting expensive and pretty tough to track down. These ones are all pretty common. I just want to mention Dora the Explorer. It's still extremely cheap, but it's just one you don't see too often. Dragon Lair 3D. This is another fairly uncommon game. Keep your eyes out for that one. It's still fairly affordable. Dr. Muto. This one, both times collecting this set, I never seem to find in the wild. Yeah, I don't know why, but it's a pretty tough one to find. Drome Racers. This is fairly uncommon. Most people never even heard of this game. It's still really cheap though, so make sure you pick up that one. Ed, Edd and Eddy. This was one of my last games I got for the first set, and it was semi-hard to track down. I'd put it in the semi-uncommon. These are pretty good. ESPN MLS Extra Time 2002. Another sports game that is just tough to find. It's fairly uncommon. I'd say borderline rare. Which is funny though, because the Winter Sports Edition I had no trouble getting. Eternal Darkness, great game, getting expensive. Evolution Skateboarding, still pretty cheap. Evolution Snowboarding. This is another one that people blame me for jacking up the price, unfortunately. It is really hard to find. This one is actually sealed. I don't know if you can tell inside the protector. I couldn't find a CIB copy, so I actually had to get a sealed copy. Very, very tough to find, Evolution Snowboarding. I'm just going to say that's probably in one of the top 20 rarest as well. Evolution Worlds here. Pretty uncommon. Extreme G3. This is just a cheap game that you don't see too often. As well as F1 2002. This is just a one that kind of flew under the radar. Nobody talks about, but you can't just easily find it. That's going to do it for that section. So into the F's here. Pretty common stuff. We got all sports games. Nothing too rare here. Fireblade. I'm going to say that's a semi-uncommon game. Just one you don't see too often. Obviously, Fire Emblem, Path of Radiance. I can't believe how expensive this game is getting. It's a rare one, expensive. Here's a gooder, Freaky Flyers. This is such a great game, total hidden gem, and I had problems finding it both times collecting the set. It's just one you don't see. Freedom Fighters. I used to see this game all the time. I just haven't seen it in the wild at all recently, so maybe keep your eyes open for that one. This stuff's all pretty common stuff. F-Zero, great game, getting expensive. Gauntlet Dark Legacy. I actually got 3 of these collecting the set for the second time. Yeah, I had 3 at one time. Did a lot of trading with it, but it's getting expensive. Geist, what a great game. I just want to give it a shout out because it's such a good game. It's actually starting to climb in price. It was such a cheap game for many years, and people are catching on to how good it is. Gladius, this is an uncommon game. Oh boy, Goblin Commander. First time collecting the set, very tough. Second time collecting the set, get out of here. This game was ridiculously hard to find. Like, wow. Goblin Commander, I'm going to say, is in the top 10 rarest games. I don't know why, but it is really tough to find, so keep your eyes open for that. Go-Go Hyper Grind. I remember paying like 60 bucks for this the first time collecting the set. It blows my mind how expensive this game is. It's Atlas. It's pretty rare. It's extremely expensive. And of course, Gotcha Force. Everyone knows that one's tough to find and it's very expensive. Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy. Just an uncommon game I don't see too often. Yeah, Screw Rider Slot Car Thunder. This game too, another really tough one to find. I always remember that the first time I got this game for the first set, I got it from Virage sale for $5. Yeah. Second time collecting the set, not so easy. It was really tough to find. That's one of the rarest as well. I'm going to mention Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. It's the rarest of the Harry Potter games. It's getting fairly expensive as well. Moving on over here, just want to mention Harvest Moon, Another Wonderful Life. That's where you get to play as the girl. It's definitely the rarest of the Harvest Moon games on the GameCube. Hello Kitty, fairly uncommon game. Home Run King, a sports game that nobody ever talks about and one you just don't see. Hunter the Reckoning, second time collecting the set, had a bit of trouble finding this one. It's getting kind of expensive too. Of course, Ikaruga. Everybody knows about Ikaruga. It's a really fun game. It's expensive. It's fairly low print. Then we got iNinja, another uncommon game you just don't see. Italian Job, surprisingly, I don't ever see anymore. It was kind of tough to find my second round collecting the set. Judge Dredd. Whoop, there we go. Judge Dredd. This game's fairly uncommon, getting expensive. KO the Kangaroo, round 2. Another really fun hidden gem, but it's fairly uncommon. Killer 7. This game's been getting a lot of attention lately. It's a really great game, but it is getting expensive. King Arthur, kind of a generic game that flew under the radar. Nobody talks about. Pretty uncommon. All these are pretty common. Lost Kingdoms, I'll just mention, they're not really hard to find, but they are getting expensive. Lotus Challenge. This one here, yeah, Lotus Challenge. It's still really cheap, but it's one that is definitely tough to find, and nobody ever talks about it. Getting into these M's here, we got all the Maddens, nothing crazy here. I just like to mention that Madden 08 is the final retail release GameCube game. Mario Karts, Mario Parties, expensive, but not rare. Mary-Kate and Ashes Sweet 16. It's semi-uncommon. You don't see it everywhere, but it's still really cheap. Metabot Infinity. This one's actually been going up in price. It's one you don't see too often. Megaman X Collection used to be so expensive, but it's actually dropped in price. So, watching my old video back and comparing it to this one, you'll notice that some things have gone up, some have actually gone down. Men in Black Alienscape. I love this game. It's a really great, fun hidden gem, but boy is this one tough to find. First time I collected the set, had to buy sealed to get it, and guess what? Second time collecting the set, had to buy sealed. I just couldn't find an open copy. Metal Arms, another uncommon game. Metal Gear Solid. I want to talk about this one. It's not tough to find, but it's tough to find in good shape. This one, for some reason, has been having disc issues. The top of the discs, the label, have been like lifting and cracking, so it's actually really hard to find a copy that's not damaged. Fortunately, mine is super mint. Now this Midway Arcade Treasures 1, this is actually the cover variant. I don't have the normal release now, but they re-released it to match the 2 and 3 versions. So this is actually a pretty tough version to find. I know I didn't want to mention variants, but I just had to point it out because I like the 3 matching here. So if you want the 3 matching, you've got to find the variant of that one. MLB Slugfest 04. I talk about this game quite often on how rare it is. Again, both times had problems getting this. I don't understand why. But yeah, not 03, 04. Keep that in mind. And that's going to do it for that row. Down over here, Mortal Kombat Deception and Deadly Alliance. Both games have been climbing in price. Deception I found a little harder to find than Deadly Alliance, but they're both climbing in price. Muppet Party Cruise. Yeah, it's just a really random kind of filler title, but it's one you definitely don't see very often. Mystic Heroes. This one's just kind of like a generic RPG style game, and it's one you don't see too often. Namco Museum 50th Anniversary. This game is semi-uncommon. There's actually a normal museum and then the 50th anniversary. This stuff's all pretty meh. Everyone kind of thought because of Kobe Bryant's passing that this game might go up in price. It really hasn't too much, but I just thought I'd point out that Kobe is on the cover of NBA Courtside 2002. Nothing special here. I've actually noticed this game's been slightly climbing in price. NBA Street Volume 3. Maybe it's because it got the Mario characters with it. And of course, the one that's been known to be rare for a very long time, NCAA College Basketball 2K3. It's rare, it's expensive. But it's funny because the football version is still really cheap. Some more football, Need for Speeds, nothing crazy here. I did notice that NFL Blitz 2003 has been climbing in price. And that's pretty much going to do it for this row. NHL 2K3. Why is this game getting expensive? I don't know. I didn't have any trouble finding it both times collecting the set, but I've noticed it has been climbing in price for some reason. It's one of the more expensive NHL games. As well as NHL Hits 03. This one has also been climbing for some reason, even though I much prefer 02. Crutch Whoop. But yeah, 3 is getting expensive. Pro still seems to be pretty readily available for cheap. I just want to mention One Piece Grand Adventure. This game's been climbing in price and it's fairly uncommon. I didn't have trouble finding the other 2 One Piece games. Pac-Man World Rally. This game here, fairly uncommon. I'm just going to mention Paper Mario. This game used to be like really affordable. It's just getting so out of control in price. It's an absolutely wonderful game, but it is getting very expensive. Got to mention Phantasy Star Online 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 Plus. Really expensive. Not too hard to find. You can pretty much always grab one off eBay. Just shout out to Pikmin 1 and 2 because I love those games. Pokemon Box. Obviously, everyone knows this is one of the most expensive and rarest games to get on the GameCube. Some people don't even consider it part of the set. To each their own. But in my opinion, it's definitely part of the set. Coliseum. It's not rare or uncommon. It sold really well, but it's expensive. Same with XD. I can't believe the prices of these games now. Piano 3 here. Pretty uncommon game. Powerpuff Girls. This game I had trouble finding the first time. Second time, not so much. Power Rangers Dino Thunder. Just uncommon game I don't see too often. Next section here. Pro Rally. Just going to put that in there as fairly uncommon. Puyo Pop Fever. One that I didn't have too much trouble finding, but you don't see it too often. And of course, Rally Championship. One of the rarest and most expensive games on the GameCube now. Yeah, this game was super hard to find the first time collecting the set. I knew how bad it was going to be to find. It was actually one of my first games collecting the set for the second time. So I learned my lesson. Yeah, you see Rally Championship for a decent price, get it. Because it is extremely rare. I'm going to give a shout out to Rave Master. This is just one of those games that flies under the radar. Still fairly affordable. Red Card 2003. Another game that's getting a little bit expensive, but it's really rare. All the Resident Evils are really great games. I'm just going to mention 2 and 3. They've gotten pretty expensive. And now Code Veronica. I can't believe how expensive that game's been getting. Ribbit King used to be a pretty unknown, popular, rare game. Now people figured it out, and it's expensive and rare. Roadkill. I love this game. It's a lot of fun. It's pretty uncommon. Road Trip. First time collecting the set, problems finding it. Second time collecting the set, problems finding it. I actually had to buy it sealed to get it this time. Yeah, it's a really tough one to find. It's still pretty cheap though, which is nice. These are all pretty standard stuff. Samurai Jack, I'm going to say is uncommon. The Scooby-Doos. Both times collecting the set, for some reason I had trouble finding Night of 100 Frights. Sega Soccer Slam, that was one of my last games, the first set. So I grabbed it pretty early in the second set. It's just one you don't see too often. Serious Sam, I've noticed been climbing in price. It's another one that can be tough to find. Shrek Games, yeah. This one, both times again, Shrek Super Party. Like, it was kind of hard to find the first time, but oh boy, the second time. I was checking eBay, I was checking Amazon, Facebook groups. Couldn't find this game. Eventually, after, I don't know, maybe a month or so, I managed to get a copy. But yeah, that one's a pretty tough one to find for a Shrek game especially. Carrying on, I just got to mention that Hit and Run and Road Rage, those used to be like pretty cheap games on the GameCube. I can't believe how expensive they've gotten. I'm just going to mention Sims 2 Pets. That's probably the rarest of the Sims games. I never see that one. Of course, Skies of Arcadia, expensive. It's really high in demand. I don't think it's necessarily rare, but it is expensive. Smashing Drive, another generic game that just kind of blends in that nobody talks about. That's fairly uncommon. Sonic Games, no problems there. Space Raiders, this is a pretty uncommon game that just no one talks about. Spartan Total Warrior. This one here, yeah, you just kind of tough to find. It's around, but yep. Speed Kings. Oh yeah, Speed Kings. This game, man, wow, this is a really tough one to find. This is up there with Rally Championship in my opinion. This was one of the last games I got the second time collecting the set, and I knew it was rare. I just had to be patient and try to get it. Speed Kings, extremely rare, hard to find, still semi-affordable, but yeah, keep your eyes out for Speed Kings. Here's another one, Spirits and Spells. So many just like weird named games that are so hard to find. This game was so cheap for many years, just really hard to find. Now it's really hard to find, and it's expensive. SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom used to be climbing in price quite a bit, but I think since the remake, it's kind of hurt the value of the GameCube one. This stuff here is pretty simple to find. Yep, and yeah, that's pretty much going to do it for this row. Getting down to the low sections, I am actually crawling around on the floor now, so please forgive me if the camera's a little jittery. So we just got Star Wars games here. I'm just going to say, of all the Star Wars games, I feel like Jedi Outcast is probably the rarest. Street Hoops, uncommon game I don't see too often. Strike Force Bowling, another one that just kind of blends in. Summoner, Goddess Reborn, still super cheap. But yeah, the second time collecting the set, had problems finding that one. Sum of All Fears. This is another one that just kind of blended in. Fairly uncommon. And even Super Bubble Pop. I knew a fellow collector that couldn't find this game for the life of them. It is fairly uncommon. Everything here is pretty good. Yep, nothing too difficult here. Teen Titans, for some reason on the original Xbox, it's pretty expensive. It has affected the GameCube version a little bit, but it's still pretty much readily available to get. Time Splitters Future Perfect. This game's gotten really expensive. It's not even that rare, but I just noticed that it's gotten pretty expensive. And then I'll just mention Tom and Jerry War of the Whiskers. It's still a pretty cheap game, but it's one that you can't really find too easily. Over here, I just want to mention Tonka Rescue Patrol. It's really cheap, but it's one that I had never actually seen a lot of copies out in the wild. Top Angler. It blows my mind how expensive this game got. Like, it's pretty tough to find, but I can't see why it's so expensive now. Transworld Surf, Next Wave with the glitchy shark. Yeah, this is a game you just don't see too often. Tube Slider. This used to be a really tough game to find. Now it's pretty much everywhere, but it's expensive. Ultimate Muscle. This is another one. Like, it's up there with Go-Go Hypergrind. It is really tough to find, but man, the price on this thing is just nuts. Vex. That's an uncommon game that's still pretty cheap. Virtua Striker 2002. This is a pretty rare game. I had trouble finding this one. Virtua Quest. Another one that's still semi-affordable, but one you just don't see. Wallace and Gromit. This is a tough one for me to find the second time. World Tour. Pretty uncommon game. Still affordable. WTA Tour Tennis. Tongue Twister. The first time collecting the set, had no problems finding this. But boy, this game is pretty rare. The second time, I couldn't get a copy at all. Luckily I found one, but yeah, keep your eye on this one. Final section here. XGRA Extreme G Racing. This game is really uncommon. So what happened the second time collecting the set, I actually forgot about this game. Yeah, I got it confused with the other Extreme G Racing game, and I had to panic and buy this game in a rush last minute when I thought I was done the set for the second time. Turns out this game was pretty hard to find. Yeah, I ended up getting a sealed copy. But yeah, keep your eyes open for that. There is 2 Extreme G Racing games on the GameCube. X-Men Next Dimension. This is just one I don't see too often. The 2 Zatchbell games. Momodal Battles, pretty uncommon. For some reason, Momodal Fury, pretty rare. Both times collecting the set, had trouble tracking this one down. Got your Zeldas, and then finally, the last rare and uncommon game in the GameCube set, Zoid's Battle Legends. This game has really gone up in price. It's tough to find. And then Zoo Cube. It's around. I wouldn't really say it's too uncommon. Alright, so that's all the rare and uncommon games in the North American GameCube set. Do you disagree with some of my choices, or did I miss any? Please let us know in the comments below. We all love GameCube, we all share that passion, so let's work together and build our collections up. I just want to say the GameCube community is awesome. I've met so many great people in the GameCube community, and I'm so thankful that my videos have helped out the community so much. So I'm actually going to leave a link to my previous GameCube rare and uncommon games in the GameCube set video, so you guys can compare that video to this one and just see how much GameCube collecting has changed. Alright everyone, hopefully this video helps out just as much as the last one did. Best of luck out there collecting the GameCube. Happy hunting. Alright, that's going to wrap up today's video. You can follow me on social media, the information is in the description. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share. I'd really appreciate it. I am the Console Collector. I want to thank everybody for watching. And until the next video, happy gaming.